Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a really fascinating bit of history today, 2 Kings chapter 12.
Yeah, this one gives us a surprisingly detailed look, doesn't it?
It really does. It covers King Joash of Judah, starting right from when he took the throne. And what hits you straight away
Huh?
is this major challenge right at the kingdom's heart.
With the temple, the state of the temple in Jerusalem.
Exactly. And you find some, well, pretty surprising stuff in here about management, money, and how things can take unexpected turns, even in a really long reign.
It's more than just kings and dates, this chapter. It kind of lifts the lid on the practical side of things, running a kingdom.
Yeah, you see a leader grappling with what feels like a very persistent, almost bureaucratic issue.
Right, alongside the bigger threats in the internal politics, it feels quite relatable in some ways, the admin challenges.
Totally. So, okay, the basics. King Joash. Who was he?
Well, the text tells us he becomes king in the 7th year of Jehu's reign up in Israel. And he has this incredibly long reign, 40 years in Jerusalem. We even get his mother's name, Zibiah, from Beersheba.
40 years. That's a long time. Usually spells stability, you'd think.
You would. And his early years sound pretty good, actually. It says he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord.
Huh?
But there's a
Yeah.
qualifier. During the years Jehoiada the priest instructed him.
Ah, so Jehoiada was key. A mentor figure.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Especially since Joash might have been quite young when he started. So Jehoiada's guidance seems to have set a positive initial tone.
Right, a king doing what was right, guided by a respected priest. Sounds like a solid beginning, but there's always a but, isn't there? There's a detail that, well, complicates things immediately.
There is. And it points straight to the difficulty of, changing deeply rooted practices.
What is it?
The text adds right away, the high places, however, were not removed. The people continued to offer sacrifices and burn incense
The
there.
high places.
Yep.
Right, these were the local shrines outside Jerusalem.
Exactly. Scattered around, often on hills. And for the authors of Kings, that's a big problem.
Because all worship was supposed to be centralized in the Jerusalem temple.
That was the ideal, yes. So even with Jehoiada's influence and Joash supposedly doing right, these popular local worship spots persisted. He either couldn't or maybe didn't get rid of them.
Shows the limits, maybe. Political reality versus a religious ideal.
I think so. It shows that tension. Trying to enforce a massive cultural shift like that, probably very difficult, even for a good king.
Yeah, that's a great point. Leaders always have to balance the ideal with the possible. And speaking of the temple, the central one, that becomes Joash's big project here.
It does. He sees the damage. It needs fixing badly.
So he comes up with a plan to fund it.
His first plan, yeah. Logical enough on the surface. He tells the priests, okay, collect the sacred money coming in.
What kind of money?
3 types specifically. Census money, cash from personal vows people made, and just, voluntary donations. And the instruction was clear. Each priest gets the money from their treasurers, and they use that money for the temple repairs. Find the damage, fix it.
Right. So money comes in, priests manage it through their own channels, they oversee the repairs. Seems straightforward,
It sounds like it should work.
but it didn't.
Well, something went badly wrong for a long time. The source is blunt. By the 23rd year of King Joash's reign, the priests still had not repaired the temple.
23 years. Wow, that's not just a delay, that's a total system failure.
It's staggering, isn't it? More than 2 decades, and the main religious building is still falling apart, even though funds were supposedly set aside.
Why? Does it say why? Were they skimming, not collecting enough? Was the system just broken?
The text doesn't give us the explicit reason. Maybe not enough came in, maybe it got used for other things, maybe having each priest manage their bit was just too messy, no oversight.
Could be any number of things.
Exactly. We don't know the exact cause of the failure, but the result is undeniable. 23 years of, well, nothing happening on the repair front.
And you have to think, 23 years is a long time for the king to let this slide. Surely he noticed.
He must have, because finally he steps in. Directly.
What does he do?
He calls them in, Jehoiada, the other priests, and he basically confronts them. Why, he asks, haven't you repaired the temple?
Straight to the point.
And then he issues a new order, completely changes the game. He says, take no more money from your treasurers, but hand it over for repairing the temple.
Whoa. Okay, so he's saying you guys aren't getting it done. Stop handling the money for this project.
Pretty much. He's centralizing the financial control for the repairs, taking it away from the individual priest's management.
How did they react? I mean, being called out like that and having their control taken away.
You'd expect maybe some pushback.
Yeah.
But the text says they agreed. They agreed to stop collecting money directly from the people for the repair fund. And interestingly, they also agreed they wouldn't be responsible for the actual repair work either.
Really? So they're out of the fundraising and the project management for the repairs now.
That's the shift. Complete change in responsibility.
Okay, so if the priests aren't collecting the repair money anymore and they aren't doing the repairs, how does it work now? Who's in charge?
This is where Jehoiada, the high priest, steps up working with the king. He introduces this new system. It's actually quite clever in its simplicity.
What does he do?
He got a chest, basically a box, drilled a hole in the lid, like an old school collection box,
Okay.
and he placed it right beside the altar near the temple entrance. And the new rule was simple. The priest guarding the entrance put all the money people brought to the temple into that chest.
Ah, I see. One central pot for the repair funds.
Yeah.
Right where everyone comes in. Clear, visible.
Exactly. It tackles the decentralized issue head on, creates transparency, makes sure the money meant for repairs actually goes where it's supposed to. It's a neat operational fix.
It really is. Very pragmatic. So what happened with the money in the chest? How was it handled?
The process was also new. When the chest got full, or had a good amount in it, two people came together. The royal secretary.
The king's guy.
Right. And the high priest, Jehoiada, they'd count the money from the chest and put it into bags.
Okay, so joint oversight now. Royal administration and the high priest involved in the counting. That builds in a check, doesn't it?
It does, a check and balance. Then, this counted money was given to specific men, supervisors appointed just for the temple work.
And these supervisors paid the workers.
They did. They were given the authority to disperse the funds. The text lists who they paid: carpenters, builders, masons, stonecutters.
The actual laborers doing the work.
Yep. And they also bought the materials timber, dressed stone. It says they covered all the other expenses of restoring the temple. This fund was strictly for the building project.
And the text makes a point about what the money wasn't used for, too.
Yes, that's a really important detail. It underlines the focus.
What was excluded?
It explicitly says the money from that chest was not used to make new fancy items for the temple: silver basins, wick trimmers, bowls, trumpets, any gold or silver articles.
Ah, so no new furnishings or ritual objects from this fund.
Nope. It went straight to the workmen and the materials for the structural repairs. Fixing the building itself was the absolute priority.
A dedicated capital repairs budget. Strictly managed.
That's exactly what it sounds like. A very focused approach after the earlier failure. And then comes maybe the most surprising detail in this whole section.
Oh, what's that?
Given the previous problems and the amount of money involved, the text says that an accounting was not required from the supervisors who paid the workers.
Wait, no accounting. They just handed over bags of money and didn't ask for receipts or records? That seems risky.
It does seem counterintuitive by modern standards, doesn't it? But the text gives a reason.
Which is?
Because they acted with complete honesty.
Wow. Just complete trust. So after years of failure, possibly due to lack of accountability, the new system has central collection, dual oversight for counting, but then relies entirely on the integrity of the supervisors for the final payout.
It's a fascinating contrast. It suggests maybe the real bottleneck wasn't dishonest workers or foremen, but the initial collection and fund management, and that these supervisors were chosen specifically for their trustworthiness.
Incredible. Shows a different kind of project management built on personal integrity.
It really does. And just to wrap up the money part, the text clarifies one more thing.
Okay.
Money from specific types of offerings, guilt offerings, and sin offerings, that was handled differently. It didn't go into the repair chest. That money still belonged to the priests, part of their regular income.
Got it. So the repair fund was separate, but the priests still had their traditional sources of revenue.
Exactly. It maintains that distinction.
Okay, so Joash seems to have finally cracked this big internal problem. The temple repair is underway with a new working system. Things are looking up domestically. But then the story shifts gear dramatically.
It does. Suddenly we're dealing with a major external crisis. Out of the blue, almost.
What happened?
The text says, about this time, Hazael, king of Aram, attacked Gath and captured it.
Hazael of Aram. He was a major power player, right?
Yeah.
And Gath. That's getting close.
Very close. Gath is west of Judah. Taking it shows Hazael's strength and ambition. And his next target, Jerusalem.
An imminent threat to the capital.
Absolutely. The army is basically at the gates. So how does Joash respond after all that effort fixing the
Did
temple?
he fight? Defend the city?
He takes a very different approach, a really pragmatic, maybe even desperate one.
What does he do?
He gathers up everything valuable, everything, all the sacred objects dedicated by his ancestors, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, Ahaziah, plus his own dedicated gifts, and
Yeah.
then
Yes.
all the gold from the temple treasury and the royal palace treasury.
Everything. The sacred stuff and the state reserves. That's immense.
It's basically emptying the vaults, the accumulated religious treasures, and the kingdom's entire gold supply.
Why? What did he do with it all?
He sent it all. It's a
Yeah.
massive tribute payment to Hazael of Aram.
You tried to buy him off.
Exactly.
And did it work? Did Hazael take the treasure and leave?
The text is very concise. Then Hazael withdrew from Jerusalem.
So it worked. Peace was secured. But the cost, stripping the temple and palace bare, generations of wealth and sacred heritage gone just like that.
It saved the city, saved lives, perhaps. But it left the kingdom financially drained and religiously diminished in a sense. A stark example of how external pressures can force brutal choices.
Yeah, that really underscores the difficult realities of kingship, from fixing finances to emptying the treasury just to survive. And the end of Joash's story, as told here, is just as abrupt and surprising, isn't it?
It really is. Right after this success with the temple repairs and this costly diplomatic move with Hazael, the narrative jumps to his end. It mentions other records exist, but here it focuses on one thing:
His death.
his assassination. His officials conspired against him and assassinated him at Beth Millo on the road down to Silla.
By his own officials. After a 40-year reign, after sorting out the temple and saving the city. That seems out of nowhere.
It does feel sudden and shocking. The text even names the assassins: Jozabad, son of Shemith, and Jehozabad, son of Shomer. He's buried. His son Amaziah takes over, but yeah, assassinated.
Why? Any clues? The text doesn't say, does it?
It doesn't give an explicit motive, which leaves us to wonder.
Could it be connected? Maybe the huge tribute payment angered people, draining the treasury like that.
That's certainly possible. Maybe resentment built up, or perhaps discontent among the priests lingered after he took control of the repair funds, or other political factions we just don't hear about.
Could be anything, really.
Exactly. The text just states the fact, highlighting perhaps the fragility of power, even after decades, even after apparent successes.
So summing up this deep dive into 2 Kings 12, we've seen King Joash. Starts promisingly under guidance, tackles this huge, decades-long administrative mess with the temple using, well, some clever management changes and trust.
Right. Implements a whole new system.
Then faces this devastating external threat, pays a massive price to survive it. And yet, his long reign ends violently, betrayed by his own inner circle.
It really shows the different pressures, doesn't it? Internal administration, external threats, internal politics, and conspiracies, all shaping his time.
You see him wearing all those hats: administrator, diplomat, commander-in-chief, maybe. But success in one area clearly didn't guarantee security.
No, it didn't. Started well, fixed a big problem, faced down an enemy, but still ended badly. It's a complex picture.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does this sudden, violent end, after all the detailed focus on administration and crisis management, tell us about the hidden currents and pressures that exist even under seemingly stable or successful leadership? Something to definitely chew on.